It's not just personal resentment anymore. It's the belief that he represents the ultimate threat to Yellowstone. With Sarah Atwood manipulating Jamie into taking a stand against the family, Beth is ready to cross any line necessary to eliminate him. But Beth's aggression is also alienating her allies. Casey watches his sister's descent with growing concern, questioning how far she's willing to go in the name of justice. Even Rip, her husband, finds himself at odds with her determination to destroy Jamie. Rip has always been Beth's rock, her constant, but now he's caught between his loyalty to her and his sense of what's right. Rip is a man who knows when enough is enough, and he senses that Beth is spiraling out of control. He tries to reason with her, to remind her of what truly matters, but Beth is beyond reason. She's consumed by the need to destroy the person she sees as her father's murderer. In the middle of this escalating conflict is Jamie, who feels cornered and trapped, yet strangely empowered by Sarah's influence. She's told him that he's the rightful heir to the land, that John's passing represents a transfer of power from one generation to the next. Her words embolden him, pushing him to see Yellowstone as his own rather than something he has to protect for others. Jamie's relationship with Sarah has turned him into a pawn in a much larger game, but he's also starting to see himself as a king on the chessboard. He's ready to claim what he believes is rightfully his, even if it means facing off against his siblings. But Jamie's newfound resolve is shaky. Deep down, he's conflicted. He knows he's crossing lines he never thought he'd cross, aligning himself with forces that only want Yellowstone for profit. Jamie may crave power, but he also feels the weight of his father's legacy, a legacy that is fundamentally tied to the land and the values John tried to instill in his children. There's a part of Jamie that wonders if he's making the right choice, if the cost of winning this fight will be worth it. But Sarah's influence is powerful, and she's quick to remind him that power isn't something you wait for, it's something you take. Sarah Atwood represents a uniquely dangerous threat to Yellowstone. Unlike previous antagonists who sought the land for its resources or for their own personal vendettas, Sarah is calculating and pragmatic. She sees Yellowstone as a prize, but she's also willing to manipulate and destroy anyone who stands in her way to get it. Her relationship with Jamie is a tool, a means to an end, and she's not above using him to achieve her goals. Sarah's involvement in John's death makes her Yellowstone's most insidious villain yet. She doesn't just want to conquer the land, she wants to dismantle everything it stands for. She views the Dutton family as relics of a bygone era, and she's determined to erase them from the landscape. While Sarah's influence over Jamie grows, Beth sees her as the ultimate enemy. Beth's vendetta against Sarah is fueled not just by her father's death, but by a deep-seated hatred for what Sarah represents, a ruthless corporate machine with no respect for tradition or legacy. For Beth, Sarah isn't just an enemy. She's an existential threat to everything the Duttons hold dear. Beth's quest for vengeance becomes singularly focused on bringing Sarah down, no matter the cost. But there's a dark irony in Beth's pursuit of Sarah. As she obsesses over taking Sarah down, she risks becoming exactly what Sarah represents: ruthless, willing to sacrifice anything to win. Beth's methods become increasingly brutal, pushing her siblings and allies away. She doesn't see the damage she's causing, the way her actions are driving the family closer to the brink. Beth's refusal to back down becomes both her strength and her fatal flaw, a trait that could ultimately destroy her and everything she's fought to protect. In the meantime, Casey tries to find a path that preserves both his father's legacy and his own family's future. Torn between the Dutton legacy and his love for Monica and Tate, he begins to question what Yellowstone really means to him. For Casey, the ranch has always been a place of conflict, a land soaked in blood and violence. Yet, it's also his heritage, something he feels responsible for. Casey's encounters with the wolves are a constant reminder of his connection to the land, a symbol of his struggle to balance his family's legacy with his own needs. Casey's journey is one of self-discovery, a search for peace amid chaos. He wants to protect Yellowstone, but he doesn't want to lose himself in the process. Casey's love for his family and his desire for a simpler life pull him away from the conflict, yet he feels compelled to fight for what his father left behind. Casey's dilemma is perhaps the most tragic of all, as he struggles to reconcile his love for his family with his need to create a life separate from the violence and betrayal that define the Duttons. As Casey grapples with his choices, he becomes a stabilizing force in the family's unraveling. He's the one who can see beyond the immediate conflict, who understands the value of compromise and restraint. But Casey's attempts to mediate are often ignored, as his siblings are too caught up in their own agendas to listen. Beth and Jamie view him as weak, unwilling to do what's necessary to protect the family. But Casey knows that there are things worth more than and land, things that can't be bought or sold. His perspective offers a glimmer of hope, a possibility that the Dutton legacy doesn't have to end in bloodshed. But Casey's desire for peace is not enough to halt the war raging around him. The alliances forming within the family are tenuous at best, and the distrust between Beth and Jamie threatens to tear them apart. Beth's vendetta against Jamie intensifies, and she begins to consider drastic measures to remove him from the picture entirely. For Beth, Jamie's betrayal is unforgivable, and she's willing to go to any length to protect what she sees as her rightful inheritance. Meanwhile, Jamie's relationship with Sarah deepens, and he begins to see her as his ticket to independence, a way to break free from the Dutton legacy and forge his own path. But Sarah's manipulation is dangerous, and Jamie's naivety leaves him vulnerable to her schemes. She encourages his ambition, feeding his desire for power, even as she keeps him firmly under her control. Jamie's alliance with Sarah puts him at odds with his family, but he's too blinded by his own ambitions to see the danger he's in. As the Duttons spiral further into chaos, the question of who will emerge victorious becomes increasingly uncertain. Each of them is fighting for control, but their motivations are wildly different. Beth wants to protect her father's legacy, even if it means sacrificing her own soul. Jamie wants power and independence, even if it means aligning himself with those who would destroy his family. And Casey wants peace, a life free from the violence and conflict that have defined the Dutton legacy. In the midst of this turmoil, one thing becomes clear. Yellowstone is not just a piece of land. It's a symbol of the Dutton family's identity, a place that represents their history, their values, and their future. As the final season unfolds, each of them must confront the question of what Yellowstone means to them and whether it's worth the sacrifices they've made. The alliances and betrayals within the family reflect the larger battle for the soul of the ranch, a struggle that will ultimately determine the fate of the Dutton legacy. But Yellowstone's legacy isn't something that can be neatly preserved or passed down. It's a living, breathing entity, shaped by the choices and sacrifices of those who call it home. And as the Duttons face the final showdown, they'll have to decide whether their loyalty to Yellowstone is worth the cost, or if it's time to let go and forge new paths for themselves. In the end, the fate of Yellowstone may hinge not on who wins, but on who is willing to walk away, to leave the past behind and embrace a future free from the conflicts that have defined their lives. This is the choice facing each of them: to stay and fight for a legacy that may no longer be theirs, or to leave and create new lives for themselves. In the climactic stretch of Yellowstone's final season, the Duttons are left with one ultimate choice: to protect their legacy or abandon it for the sake of peace. As the consequences of their actions reverberate, it becomes clear that the only way forward for each character might be to confront the brutal reality of their family's past and the future they're willing to fight for, or to let go of. With Beth set on eliminating Jamie, Casey longing for a peaceful life for his son, and Jamie embroiled in Sarah's manipulative schemes, each member of the family reaches a breaking point. The alliances they've formed are fracturing. Once motivated by family loyalty, each Dutton is now operating from a position of self-preservation. Beth's desire for revenge against Jamie and Sarah becomes an obsession, and she grows more desperate, alienating Casey and Rip along the way. For Beth, the fight for Yellowstone has always been personal, but her relentless drive now blinds her to the harm she's causing. In Beth's mind, the land is everything. It's her father's legacy, her birthright, the piece of her family that will live on after John's death. She sees herself as the last line of defense for Yellowstone, and her hatred for Jamie only fuels her resolve. Yet as she spirals further into her vendetta, even Rip begins to question her motives. Rip has always supported Beth, but he sees that her actions are pushing them further into a life defined by conflict and vengeance, one that leaves little room for anything else. Rip has come to value his life on the ranch, but he doesn't want it at the cost of his humanity or the people he loves. Meanwhile, Jamie finds himself increasingly trapped by his alliance with Sarah. At first, he believed that aligning with her was his ticket to freedom, his way of claiming the power he's always felt he deserved. But as Sarah's true intentions come to light, he begins to realize the depth of his mistake. Sarah isn't interested in preserving Yellowstone or even Jamie's legacy. She's interested in market equity's interests, using Jamie as a pawn to secure her own position. Jamie, who once thought of himself as Yellowstone's rightful heir, finds himself little more than a puppet in Sarah's game. For Jamie, this realization is devastating. His lifelong search for belonging and power has led him to betray the family he once swore to protect. Despite everything, Jamie's feelings for his family run deep, and the guilt he feels over his father's death begins to consume him. He starts to wonder if there's a way to make things right, a way to atone for his betrayal. But Jamie's path to redemption is unclear, especially with Beth gunning for his life. The more he struggles against Sarah's influence, the more he realizes that escaping her may mean sacrificing everything he's fought for. Casey, on the other hand, faces a choice that pulls him in a different direction. Unlike Beth and Jamie, who are both ensnared in their own ambitions, Casey longs for a simpler life, free from the cycles of violence that have plagued his family. He wants to protect his son, Tate, from the legacy of bloodshed that comes with being a Dutton. Casey's encounters with wolves, the recurring symbol of his connection to the land, serve as a reminder that there's a part of him that belongs to Yellowstone. Yet he knows that staying means exposing his family to the danger and betrayal that the Dutton name inevitably brings. As the season nears its conclusion, Casey's dilemma becomes the heart of Yellowstone's story. He embodies the question at the core of the Dutton legacy: is Yellowstone worth the cost? For Casey, the answer isn't easy. He's tied to the land in ways he can't fully escape, but he's also seen the toll that loyalty to the ranch has taken on his family. Casey begins to consider a future where Tate can inherit Yellowstone, but not the pain and conflict that have defined the Dutton name. He hopes to create a new legacy, one that honors the land without sacrificing his family's happiness. As tensions escalate, Beth, Jamie, and Casey come face to face with their differences, each making one final decision about what they're willing to sacrifice for Yellowstone. For Beth, the answer is clear. She's willing to sacrifice anything, including Jamie, to preserve her father's legacy. But her ruthlessness has pushed her to the brink, alienating the people she loves most. Her drive to protect Yellowstone has turned her into a mirror of the enemies she's fought against. And as the season draws to a close, Beth must confront the cost of her obsession. Jamie's journey is one of reckoning. Having betrayed his family and aligned himself with Sarah, he realizes too late that he's been manipulated into destroying everything he once held dear. As he watches Yellowstone slip through his fingers, Jamie is left to wonder if he's lost the chance for redemption. He's made his choice, and now he must live with the consequences. For Jamie, there's no going back. He's burned too many bridges, hurt too many people, and the legacy he once thought he could claim is beyond his reach. In the end, Yellowstone's final season hinges on these competing visions for the future. Beth's desire for vengeance, Jamie's craving for power, and Casey's hope for peace collide in a final showdown that will decide the fate of the Dutton legacy. As the Duttons confront one another, the land itself seems to reflect their turmoil, a wild, untamed expanse that has seen generations of conflict and struggle. Yellowstone is more than just a ranch. It's a symbol of the Duttons' resilience, their pride, and their downfall. Yet amid the chaos, there's a glimmer of hope. Casey's vision for a different kind of legacy, a legacy that honors Yellowstone without sacrificing everything for it, offers a way forward. His desire to protect his family, to give Tate a future that isn't defined by violence, represents the possibility of breaking free from the past. Casey's love for Yellowstone is rooted in respect for the land, not a desire for power. His journey is one of healing, of finding a way to hold on to Yellowstone without letting it consume him. As the dust settles, it becomes clear that the only way for the Duttons to truly honor Yellowstone is to let go of the battles that have defined them. The legacy they leave isn't one of blood and betrayal, but one of resilience and survival. Yellowstone may not end with the Duttons in control, but it will endure as a testament to their struggles and sacrifices. In the end, the land belongs to itself, a wild, untamed force that exists beyond the reach of any one family. For the Duttons, Yellowstone's final season is both an ending and a beginning. It's the conclusion of a story defined by conflict, but it's also the start of a new legacy, one that looks beyond the need for control. As they face the final moments on the ranch, each of them must confront what Yellowstone means to them, what they're willing to give up for it, and whether they're ready to walk away. In the final scene, as the Duttons stand on the land they've fought so hard to protect, there's a sense of peace that settles over them. They may have lost the battle, but they've found a way to let go, to move forward, without the weight of the past holding them back. For the first time, they see Yellowstone not as a prize to be won, but as a legacy that exists beyond their control. It's a powerful reminder that the land is bigger than any one person, that Yellowstone will endure long after the Duttons are gone. And so, Yellowstone's final season closes not with a climactic victory, but with a quiet, profound acceptance. The Duttons may not have won, but they've found a way to make peace with the land and with each other. Their legacy isn't one of dominance or control, but of survival and resilience. In the end, Yellowstone stands as a testament to their journey, a symbol of the sacrifices they made and the land they loved.